Well, welcome to another episode of HF Conversations. Thank you so much for following along with this journey that we've had this year. We've had a lot of great episodes. We've talked about all kinds of stuff from, what you were actually the first guest.
This is true.
We talked about rebooting your year and about how to keep the change, how to make change. And, one of our resolutions, well, at least for me as the creative director and online director here, was to do this podcast.
Yeah,
and we're still doing it.
We are. We're
doing it. We're like 16 episodes in now.
Yeah.
So it's pretty exciting.
It is. It's good.
So today I brought Pastor Mark back. Mark was on our panel that we had a few weeks ago when we actually did an HF Conversation series for our main service, which was extremely fun.
It was.
And we got so many great questions. And so one thing that we said we would do after that panel discussion is answer some more questions from you guys that you have sent in on our website. And so if you have something that you'd like to talk about, you can still submit that.
Yeah.
So you can go to our website and submit a question, and you can send us your thoughts, and we'll talk about them. So today we're going to answer one together on communion. And this is actually one that was asked for our panel, and we ran out of time because there were 5 people trying to share, and we got through as many as we could, honestly.
Yeah.
So this is a question about communion. So someone wrote in, and here's what they said. Jesus was pretty clear about communion, what it stood for, and that we should do it in remembrance of him. And so they're wondering, how often should we take communion? Also, is this something that we just do as a church, or is it all right to do it by yourself or with your family? So, what does the Bible say about communion? How often should we do that? And how? How do we do that?
Yeah.
Where do we do that?
Yeah. Man, there's a lot of great questions just in this one question for one. So thanks so much for submitting the question in this way. And it's really hard to be able to speak to the question in all those ways without considering all the context, because we all come into this probably, if you're not a church person, a church background,
sure,
you probably are not anticipating, you have no expectation of communion,
right,
or no expectation of how often we would do it or any of those kind of things, where oftentimes one of the things we have is that a lot of people have been in a church background,
right,
where they have a lot of expectations about it. Sure. And it either is something that's supposed to happen every week, or something that's supposed to happen every month, or once a quarter, or all those different things.
Yeah.
And here's what I love so much about this is that, I think Jesus is pretty clear about it, meaning, significance, all of those kind of things. And so I'll just kind of talk a little bit about this. Like, in the history of this church, of Highlands Fellowship, when Highlands started, the thought was for sure that there are a lot of churches that do communion every single week, and it's a religious practice that has become maybe a little stale, a little dry, to say the least.
Sure.
A lot of people did it all the time and had no idea really what they were doing or what it meant.
Yeah.
And then to be able to remove a barrier for unchurched people coming in, it was something that didn't happen on a regular basis. That is, that maybe once or twice a year they would do it with that thought in mind. But when we capture the essence of this, the most important thing is not how often that it happens. It's understanding the principle and the concept of, as often as you do it, do this in remembrance of me.
Sure.
And that's one of the things I have to constantly think about is the frequency of it matters not quite as much as if I'm doing it with the right intent and the right focus in mind. Which, when Jesus set it up, one of the important things to understand about that as well is that when Jesus disrupts everything at Passover, that they'd done the same thing hundreds of years over and over and over again at Passover, and he disrupts what was the Jewish Passover that happened every single year, and institutes now himself into the middle of that as the sacrifice.
Sure.
That changed everything. And it changed everything in when he addresses, this is my blood and it's this new covenant. He addresses all of this in it's a very Jewish thing to have said, even though he disrupts the Jewish Passover. It's a very Jewish thing to say because they were huge on memorial. Like, they were huge on these specific reminders of, this is what God did, so we do this now. This is what God has done, so we do this now. And oftentimes those things would be yearly, but that's a lot of information. I think the important thing here, you can do this in community, with family, small group, all of those kind of things is so good. You don't have to have a pastor leading you through
You don't have to administer the communion
on a Sunday morning and
Yeah.
all that. And so this is a lot of backdrop of some of the first things that come to my mind when I think about it. Yeah.
That's good. I think too, this is in a similar vein of like, when Paul talks about praying without ceasing, right? And Razak is like, man, if my dad's driving, I don't want him to be praying with his eyes closed because like that just seems bad. He might get in a car wreck, but it's not that you actually like never stop praying, but it's like the fervency that you have, the passion for that shouldn't go away. Again, so as often as you do these things, not every second of the day that it matters, but it's the way we approach it. And if you want to hear a little more of the backstory about that, they can go listen to your Good Friday message on our website where you really unpacked the idea of Jesus being at the table in the Passover in that moment and what that means and the history of that. And the thing that I kept thinking of after your message was that for thousands of years they did Passover. Like we can't do something for like 3 years, right? If you get to the third annual something, it's like a big deal, right? Like we did this 3 times. They did it for thousands of years, you know? And so not only is there great disruption, but there's a great like passion in that, right? Of what it means, of what it symbolizes that God would come and rescue us, right? That's what they're celebrating in that moment. That's what this means. So now Jesus takes something that is a means of celebration of a Passover, right? Of salvation in a way. Now he takes that into a new form. And so now we get to celebrate that in a new way, but a continued way. It's a cool thing that I didn't appreciate as a child.
No, right. Me neither. And so one of the things I talk about over and over again about a variety of topics, and probably will as we have even future conversations, is in the history of the church, the pendulum swings.
Sure.
Like if you study church history, that's one of the most significant things that you see is that the pendulum swings one direction and then it swings far in the other direction. And that's been one of the things that we have done when it comes to communion, when it comes to the Lord's Supper, some would refer to it as, is that we were doing it all the time. We were making sure it was in every service. We were making sure it was a part of everything. It's
like a cornerstone of what we do.
Yes.
And then it's like, why do we do this? I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know why we do this.
Yeah, we were doing it all the time.
And
we lost some of the life in it. And this is just in, American church, Protestant church life.
We're not talking about
in the 1900s.
Catholic church.
And so,
Eastern European, Orthodox.
There's a whole nother,
Anglican church.
We don't have time to address all of those things, but just in our more immediate past church history of churches in the same vein or semblance of what Highlands Fellowship would be in. And then we went in the other direction of this seems to be not something that people are engaging in. And it went far in the other direction of let's just do it once or twice a year.
Right.
And make it not a barrier for unchurched people to think, more of this. I've been to a church like this before where this happens all the time. This is blah, 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 blah. And it has nothing in it. Where now, though, what we're starting to see is a generation of people who have come up in some places of church life like that for the last 20 years who are now like, wait a second. There's this beautiful thing.
Like this is cool.
The Lord's table.
I like this.
Of I'm able to connect with him in this way, and I'm able to remember what Jesus has done in a way that's not loud. It's not loud music. It's not flashy lighting. It's not it's not any of those things. And it is kind of weird, but it's wonderfully weird. It's this beautiful, weird kind of thing that good. Now I'm seeing like younger people coming up thinking, wait a second. That was awesome. That was this amazing thing because it has, it has new life in it to them. It's not
rote. It's not.
Yes.
It's not drudgery to them. Right. It's like fresh.
What's
old is new. And
it's so wild like that. But cool. I honestly think that we're in a time where that is happening, and that was one of the things I loved so much about Good Friday and that time that we had around that was, I think that we saw. I think we saw that where it was something that maybe we had not done in quite some time. And then there was a little bit of an explosion of life in the beauty that is that.
I mean, it really was a very simple service in a lot of ways, but it became so powerful because we really just like honed in on this one thought and this one idea and made it extremely personal. Whereas sometimes I think things like communion or baptism or whatever can become so just rote, right? Like you just do it. And it's like, well, why do I do that? Well, it's because what we do. It's like, okay. Yeah, but like, why? Right. And so, like a lot of times millennials or younger people sort of get, labeled as like, oh, they're just questioning everything. But I think what we want, right, is like, I'm a millennial, right? Like I want authenticity, right? Like, if this is who you are, that's what I want to know. Yeah. And so with communion, I think instead of just like pomp and circumstance and, for no reason, right? Yeah, there's this excitement about the simplicity when we see it for what it is and not for all the things that it's actually not.
Yes.
So, yeah. So to answer that question, I think what we're saying is, Jesus is clear about communion. It's about celebrating who he is and what he's done for us. It's about community. So whatever version of that community you're in, you can totally do that.
Yes.
So if it's you and I together, we could totally do that. If it's us with our small group, if it's us with our church in multiple locations, if it's, we do like for Good Friday, we did communion online too. We invited our HF online family to participate in that.
Yeah.
And said, hey, we're getting ready to take communion during the service. Go grab, some juice and a piece of bread or a cracker or a, goldfish or whatever you have and celebrate that with us in spirit. And so, that's a great question. And if you want to go back, go to our website, hf.church, and you can watch Good Friday on our message section. And Mark just had an incredible message. So it was fun to be a part of that service. And so thank you for sending this question in. And again, please keep sending in those questions. We would love to answer them throughout the coming months and weeks. Every week there's new episodes. So check it out every Wednesday on our YouTube channel, podcasts, Highlands Fellowship app. It's just, we're just going to put it everywhere.
Everywhere.
So, Pastor Mark, thank you so much for being here. And we'll see you next time for another conversation right here on HF Conversations.